When I moved into Brookpine Ridge, I was just hoping for peace and privacy. It's a quiet neighborhood, big trees, spaced out homes, no kids screaming at 2 a.m., but the quiet didn't last long. On day 2, she showed up. Karen, blonde bob, floral vest, clipboard bigger than her ego. I thought she was a neighbor dropping off banana bread. Nope, she dropped off a 40-page HOA welcome packet. Welcome to Prodigy Tales. Make sure you like and subscribe for your top-notch HOA drama. Before we dive in deeply, let us know in the comments where you're watching this story from. The packet had everything: rules about mailbox colors, trash bin placement, acceptable window curtains. There was even a paragraph about plant height enforcement. No, seriously. She stood there while I skimmed the front page and said, "Just sign the last 2 forms and return it by Friday. Dues are due on the 1st. No exceptions." I blinked. "What if I don't?" She laughed. "You'll get your first fine." At that point, I figured maybe she was just overzealous. Some neighborhoods really do have active boards, even if they're annoying. I said I'd look into it and sent her on her way. That was my first mistake, because the next morning there was a yellow envelope taped to my garage door. Violation notice. Non-compliant exterior color. Front door appears to be charcoal matte instead of approved rustic beige. I'd lived there 3 days. Then came another one for not bringing in my bins by 8:01 a.m. She had photos. Then another for parking slightly on my own lawn while unloading furniture. By the end of the first week, I had 5 warnings and a strongly worded letter about escalating to enforcement channels. And all I could think was, enforcement of what? I never signed up for anything. I started digging. And what I found, let's just say it explained a lot and made what she was doing way worse than annoying. So I kept all the letters, every fake violation Karen taped to my garage, mailbox, and once my trash can lid, I stored in a nice little folder. My realtor had said something weird when I moved in. That house? Lucky. It's different. I didn't get it then. I was starting to. On day 9, I caught Karen in the act, snapping photos of my driveway at 7:59 a.m. like she was some sort of HOA paparazzi. I stepped outside. "You good?" She didn't flinch. "Trash bins are still out." "Yeah, they get collected at 8. The rules say by 8 a.m., not at 8 a.m. You're pushing it." I had to laugh. "You set your alarm to monitor my garbage?" Karen smirked like she just won a court case. "It's not personal. I'm just enforcing the standards we all agreed to." We. All. Agreed. 2. I still hadn't responded to a single thing. I hadn't signed anything. And if I was right about what I was digging up, she was building a paper trail on someone she had zero authority over. That same week, I got a message from a neighbor, a nice older guy named Doug. He told me Karen had called a community meeting at the clubhouse to discuss problematic residents. And guess whose name was top of the slideshow? Yep, mine. She made PowerPoints, handouts, even printed one of the trash bin photos, circled it in red like a school teacher grading homework. But here's the kicker. 3 people told me she kept saying, "I'm just trying to protect property values. People who don't respect the rules shouldn't live here." One of those people was a teenage girl who said, "I think she's just mad you don't kiss her ring like everyone else." I smiled and said, "She's about to find out who she's messing with." Because in my folder, along with her ridiculous warnings, was something she clearly never bothered to check, a title report, and a little county records form that was about to blow her HOA fantasy into pieces. It was a Friday morning when the lawsuit hit my mailbox, filed in small claims court. Plaintiff, Karen Elmhurst, President, Brookpine Ridge HOA. Cause? Refusal to comply with community bylaws. She attached violation logs, printed photos, and a ridiculous spreadsheet claiming I owed $1,140 in unpaid HOA fines. I flipped to the last page and laughed. She really filed it. So I showed up to court 2 weeks later. Fresh haircut, button-down shirt, manila folder in hand. No attorney. This wasn't Supreme Court. Just enough confidence and documents to watch her crash her own fantasy world. Karen? She entered with a wheeled cart full of binders. Wore a blazer like she was auditioning for Law & Order HOA unit. Her witness? One of the neighbors who never liked me anyway. Greg, the guy who once told me my porch light was too bright for the ecosystem. When the judge walked in, I expected professionalism. Instead, she looked tired, like she'd seen 30 Karens this week and wasn't in the mood. Karen launched first. She went off for 5 full minutes, unprompted, about noncompliance, the threat of neighborhood disorder, and setting a precedent for disobedience. Her voice shook with rage every time she said my name. I just sat there quietly. Then the judge raised one eyebrow. "Mr. Wilson, your response?" I stood up and calmly passed her one sheet of paper, the county exemption form, dated, stamped, showing that my property, due to an outdated parcel designation, was never legally attached to the HOA charter. I wasn't in the HOA. I had never been in the HOA. I owed them nothing. The judge blinked, then looked at Karen. "You filed a civil complaint against someone who's not under your jurisdiction?" Karen's mouth moved, but no sound came out. The judge tapped her pen. "Miss Elmhurst, I suggest you take a seat before you file yourself into contempt." The courtroom giggled. Karen turned crimson. And I was just getting started. The moment I handed the judge that exemption form, the mood in the courtroom changed. You could hear a pin drop when she said, "Let the record reflect, the defendant's property is not subject to the HOA's governance." Karen's hands trembled. "That's impossible. Everyone is subject to the HOA." The judge peered over her glasses. "You filed over a dozen violations against someone your association has no legal control over, and tried to collect money. That's called harassment, possibly fraud." Karen gasped. "Fraud? I'm the president of this community, and you abused that position." But the real cherry on top came when I pulled out one more document, a signed affidavit from the previous homeowner who had also been harassed by Karen for refusing to join her imaginary HOA. He never did. He just moved. Quietly. Karen had been doing this for years. The judge sighed and called for a short recess. When we returned, it wasn't about fines anymore. It was about criminal intent. Because guess what else surfaced? Multiple complaints from neighbors who'd been pressured, misled, and even threatened into joining the HOA. Karen had been forging a system of control for years with zero legal foundation. This wasn't just a civil issue now, it was coercion, misrepresentation, unauthorized financial demands, and she did it while impersonating a legal authority. The judge ordered an investigation right there. HOA leadership was stripped from her immediately. But that wasn't the end. After a local DA reviewed the case, Karen was formally charged with harassment, false representation of a governing authority, fraudulent billing, retaliatory litigation, and because she weaponized the legal system against a private citizen, the court added abusive process to the list. Final verdict? 6 months jail time. Not community service. Not probation. Real jail. Karen's mugshot made the neighborhood Facebook group before dinner. She cried in court. I didn't. Even Greg, the Porchlight critic, came by to say, "Hey, maybe you were right." I smiled, shut the door, and hung a sign on my mailbox. "Not in your HOA, never was." The end. Please like and subscribe for more HOA showdowns like this. Do you think Karen got what she deserved? Comment below.